Hi, welcome to our show. Today we will be interviewing somebody who is really out there with the COVID situation, adapting, continuing her business. She's a piano teacher and she does other things as well for the community. And what I'm most excited about with her name is Kim Pendergast, and we will bring her in a second, is that during this time, some people who are running their own businesses that are teachers, some people have felt the need to stop and they're not really sure what to do. And others just really get out there and decide, I'm going to go for it. I'm still going to propose my classes. And she's one of those. And she's set up her studio in a very professional way. We're her students. And I'm impressed with how smooth it's been doing piano lessons online with her. And this type of person who really goes for it is inspiring. And I wanted to share with you today a little bit about her story, and we'll discover more about her together because I don't know her story either. So this is also a way for me to find out more about her and share it with the world. We'll bring her in 1 second. Okay, welcome, Kim.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So we can see that you're in your piano studio.
Yes.
Where you probably and where you probably spend a lot of time.
Yes, I do. Many hours a day.
Yeah. So can you just tell us, so we recently started piano with you.
Yes.
And we started during a very strange time period.
Yes, I think this all kind of took us by surprise and we were having to adapt, which is what I managed to do with the studio.
Yeah, and so that's the first reason why I was inspired to talk to you more, is because during this time, I feel like I've seen some people really go for it and naturally adapt and find new ways of doing things, and that you fall in that category right away. And there's other people that are feeling afraid and like kind of stopping and like, oh, I'll wait till this is over. I want things to go back to normal. And so can you let me know, like, so when you found out students couldn't come anymore, do you remember like your thought pattern or how you decided like, oh, I'm gonna do something?
I didn't even hesitate. I have been teaching another gentleman for about 2.5 years online using different online methods. And I just automatically went, okay, as many as I can get to join me, we will be moving all to online during this time. And it worked.
Yeah, and so you still have you have a lot of students right now and some new ones.
Yes, I've got about 30 right now that managed to stay with me online together.
Great, that's amazing.
Thank you.
So I wanted to know just a little bit about your background. You've been playing piano since you were little, right?
Yes, I started just before my 5th birthday. I won't tell you exactly how many years that was, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, and so on your path, like as somebody who was playing piano as part of your life, at what point did you decide this is what I want to do and this is how I want to transmit this, I want to teach this?
Somewhere my mom has a record of a book I had written in kindergarten. And I wrote down what my goal would be, is that I would be a piano teacher. And that never changed. Every year when they asked me what I wanted to be, it was always a piano teacher. It never changed. So it's something that I just always fell in love with when I was really little. And as soon as I was able to, I think I was as early as 15, I started taking in some students and I just fell in love with it.
And so it's kind of because when we're little or younger, we often have that kind of like, I want to be a policeman, or, you know, it's like these type of jobs. And this is very different to say, I want to be a piano teacher. And do you remember if there were people that were like, that's silly? Or do you remember people saying, oh, that's cool? Or what kind of feedback were you getting when you'd say that?
Especially in high school. I remember in grade 12, I had won the law award for being top law student. And the teacher just said to me, you're wasting your time. Don't even bother being a piano teacher. What a waste of talent or your time and energy. And I looked at him thinking, but that's been my plan all along since I was really little. So I never hesitated. I didn't look towards law. I looked right back towards the piano and kept on going with my goal.
That's great. Because it's sometimes we can be like, feel like no one's really encouraging us and that it's not the right thing, you know? So knowing ourselves so well at a young age is pretty unique, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And it was also the support of my parents because they were behind me for every exam. They were at every festival performance and, driving me to all those lessons all those years. And they never pulled back from that either. So I had a good home support in that too.
That's great. And are they musical? Do they play something or sing or?
Nobody in my family is. I'm the only one that took to music and stuck with it.
That's great. And that's interesting as well. Because if you look at a lot of history, through different musicians that are famous that we know, it's interesting to see how many generations they go back, even like rock stars seem to have had a father or a mother who was an opera singer or a conservatory pianist, and they grew up in that. And so when we kind of come from somewhere on our own, that's even more interesting because there wasn't music going on around you necessarily. And you still were like, I'm going with this.
Exactly. We had inherited a piano when I was probably 4.5. And I was always even just playing by ear at a very young age. So they knew that I had an interest being really young. And then they just put me in lessons when I was 5. And here I am today.
That's great. So as a parent, because you have children too, some younger, some older, what is your theory on your children playing music?
I had big goals with that. I
Okay.
had put my oldest son in violin. I had my middle two playing in middle school in the band. They were doing percussion and drums, but that wasn't their passion or their forte. So all 3 of mine actually are into dance more than music. So I still encourage them, try to keep the home musical and whatnot, and hopefully the younger one should continue more in a little bit more of a musical avenue.
That's great. So you're not like, oh, you have to do piano, you have to learn violin or something. It's more like, oh, this doesn't fit you. So let's move you towards, because your parents seem to also kind of let you just support you in your own natural interest.
Exactly. And I think if your child finds something that it's their forte, they just absolutely they love the lessons, they love the performance. And I think we also need to let them have a little bit of their own identification too. So with mine, it was the passion for dance. And so far, that's what they seem to be really, really enjoying. So I support that too.
Yeah. And the other thing, because I've been playing piano on and off since I was maybe 8, and I've had so many different teachers, and I can look back and be like, these are the key teachers in my life. These are the ones I'll never ever forget, that just were like the ones that knew how to work with me. And so I feel like that's such a key ingredient. So that also, when you have children, is like, well, do they not like it, or is it because it's just not the right teacher? Like, do you have students and are you upfront with parents if you think it's not a right match? Like, have you been like, look, your daughter or your son's musical, but it's not going to work with us?
Yeah, or sometimes it's the parent wanting the child to go into music and the child has no interest. So I have learned to be very tactful. You got to be sensitive because parents, of course, we want what's best for our children, but sometimes it's not always a good match. And I would much rather see that child maybe paired up with another teacher that they really connect with or would grow better with as a musician.
Yeah. And then the other aspect of teaching, because I've been teaching different types of things my whole life as well. And I find that most of us as teachers, we kind of like grow a bond with our students, and meaning that from the outside, some people may think, oh, it's just a teacher, but we have like this commitment on an emotional level in a way, because especially with music, I feel it's so soul bearing, like I can remember feeling nervous to play for my teachers just because it was so intimate. Like I just couldn't I couldn't let go of my guard. And then there's other teachers that I let them in. And it's, you have to have this trust, like a mutual trust with your teacher as a student. So I feel like, do you feel as a teacher that you have these emotional attachments to some of your students?
Absolutely. And I think because we spend that time with them almost every week, sometimes even right through the summertime. So we're such a constant for our young people out there today. And I find in particular, the preteen and the teen years have been very hard for some. So over the years, I've noticed that the piano studio has been a safe place. It's been a comfortable place for them to talk about what they need to, or if they're going through a hard time. And I find that that bond gets strengthened. So absolutely, we do connect with our kids for sure.
Yeah, and I also think it's good to have to try different teachers and not always be with the same one forever, but I think that staying with the same teacher long term has so many benefits, especially for example with my children, we when we lived in France, we had the same teacher for 9, 10 years. And so my children grew emotionally with her. And so when they were going through some difficult periods, she was almost like an aunt to them, like they were, like you said, it was a place where they felt like they could be comfortable and talk about things. And I felt kind of honored that I had someone in my life that cared about my kids, and that somebody who my kids felt comfortable and trusted, because it's hard to do everything as a parent. And that's an extra support for the family in a way, right?
Oh, absolutely. And music has such an emotional connection, you know, with it, whether we're emotionally connected to our piece or the environment or the studio or with the teacher. I think it's a huge outlet for young ones today, and older ones, of course.
Yeah, and it teaches so much about perseverance and stick to itiveness, just because we want everything so fast nowadays that people just think, oh, I'm gonna go like this. I saw an online course that I could learn piano in 3 weeks. I want to learn piano in 3 weeks. Like there's that mentality going on where people, don't realize it takes so many years just before you can even play like a great song. And so children learn that. And then it also increases their self-confidence, because they're like, wow, I got to this level and I did this and it was hard work. And it's reinforced also by the teacher, who also sees that, like, wow, look what you did, this is great. And then there's this whole confidence level going on as well, that's great for kids and adults too.
Absolutely. I think when we're in the new age of learning, a lot of people, like you said, they think they can learn these masterpieces from YouTube. And there's such a difference between spitting it out from YouTube and taking the time and the perseverance and the dedication and the really hard work of analyzing the piece and allowing that to come alive through our fingers. So I'm wholeheartedly love the whole studio arrangement where I have that connection with my students.
Yeah, that's great. So I know that you've been teaching piano for a long time. And then briefly, when we talked the other day, you also told me that you are doing some sewing projects that have also had to be adapted to COVID. So I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about that, because I thought that was fascinating.
Well, thank you. I've been sewing for a number of years. I have a side business where I design newborn photography props. And I thought, well, right now, a lot of the photographers at home, they're not able to work. So why not put my skills to use right now? And I've been making face masks for everybody who needs one, or just for, especially for our more vulnerable ones when they're out in public. So I've probably made about 160, 170 in the last 2 weeks. So it's
Wow.
been good. It's been busy, but keeping me busy is good.
Yeah, and how are you getting the word out about that? How do people hear about your masks? Or are you kind of like calling centers and saying, hey, I have some masks I can donate to you? Or how are you doing it?
No, I only advertised on my personal page, just friends and family, and then in one Saanich Moms group on Facebook, and there was many families that just jumped on it and said, yes, please, we need some for our families. So I'm just happy that I can at least help provide that little bit of health
Yeah.
boost, I guess, to try to keep everybody healthy.
Yeah. That's great. I just love it's just great talking to someone who's creative and can adapt to things that are happening. Do you feel like you've kind of always been that way, or do you remember like not being that way and like learning, you know, how to be more flexible, or is there something that happened or?
I think I've always been a little bit on the creative side where whether it was scrapbooking or sewing, upcycling. One of my favorite things is just taking a gigantic man's sweater and I cut it up and I make it into newborn baby clothing for different photo shoots and whatnot. So I think I've always had that little bit of creative side. Turning it into business has been, I think, another side of me, just being a little bit more on the entrepreneur side. And I like to keep busy. I get bored, so I like to keep my hands and mind busy all the time. So that's probably what encourages me to keep busy.
Yeah. So as someone that's naturally like that, like what would you say like to somebody you're comfortable with, like a friend or someone that right now is kind of struggling and feels the need to hibernate or kind of like retreat, or maybe feels even hopeless about everything going on? Like what kind of advice would you have? Or maybe you wouldn't have advice.
I think it's okay for everybody to react or adapt or handle this whole thing with COVID however they need to. You know, as a mom, you might need to handle it a certain way, being a partner in a relationship. Caregiving, perhaps they're also caregiving for family members or helping out other ones that shouldn't be out and about, so they're doing their shopping and their errands and whatnot. I think it's okay to handle it however best that you think you're doing. So some might need to retreat during this time because it is
Yeah.
scary out there. It's scary. Others, I can see that they're turning more to creative things. I'm seeing all kinds of neat things online that people are making and they're getting busy. I'm seeing a lot of people in their kitchens. So I'm seeing all the sourdough bread that's everybody's cooking and baking and things. So I think it's okay if you retreat a little. I think it's helpful if you can find just something that you may need during this time. So for some people, it might be just curling up with a good book and a cup of tea and hiding away in their little reading nook, and that's okay. The next person maybe moving their business to online so that they can try to keep just busy and helping other people too. So I think it's
Yeah.
okay to adapt however we might need to.
That's a great response, because people feel kind of guilty so easily about what they are or not doing, especially during this time where we might kind of feel vulnerable. So I bet it makes people really feel reassured to hear that, like it's okay. There's no right way, whatever you need, and just get in touch with your needs. And that's great advice, because there are people feeling really crappy about it, like because they're feeling scared and there's so much unknown right now. And
Absolutely.
especially people that like planning, there's people that like to plan ahead a lot. Like you and all of us know people that plan pretty much the next 12 months. They have like, right, we're doing this vacation and we're going to see those people, and then and so that they don't have that now. Like it's gone. You cannot say what you're going to do in July, or it's just not even something you can think about.
Exactly. And I think that's why for me right now, I'm that person. I'm the planner. I over plan things and I like to know exactly what's happening. I don't like surprises, that type thing. But right now, I think I've adopted more of a one day at a time philosophy. It has to be just, what am I doing today? What is my focus for today? How can I take care of my family or try and reach out to somebody else? So day by day, it's a little bit more manageable, and it makes me personally just less anxious. I can handle my task for the day.
Yeah, I agree. And I just was thinking like, there's still things we can plan, but it's, for example, we can commit to online courses to learn something new if we want to,
Yes.
because we're just, all we need is our computer. And so we can easily say, oh, the next 6 months, I'm going to dedicate a certain amount of time to learn these things. And that kind of like, I've done that and that feels good. It's like a new project, learning something new. And there's no unknown around it really, because it's there. I go online, it's there. And those type of things I find are somehow are soothing, because we like to feel like we're moving forward all the time, and
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. I think for those of us that can and have that outlet of learning something new, whether it's, in the kitchen or like you say, if it's an online course, but I think I've also got to give props to all those homeschooling moms right
oh my
now, that
God.
moms and dads that they can't think about learning something new for themselves because they're just wrapped in teaching their little ones too. So I got to give huge commendation to all those families out there that are also teaching on the side too.
Yeah, it's great to do that. It's great to recognize all the different things people are doing. And that's hard because my children are older, they're independent, they can do their class online. But I do have friends with younger kids, and it's nothing like what I'm living through at all. It's like, it's a
Same.
lot of, it's a lot of juggling and patience and adapting and all those things that when my children were younger, I already thought it was hard, but I can't imagine if I had to like make sure they're getting their work and getting online and following through. It would be exhausting, I feel like.
Yeah, especially if some of these parents are trying to work from home too. They're trying to work remotely and they're
Yeah.
trying to also be a substitute teacher and teaching their kids and taking care of their homes. So there's a lot of people working really hard right now.
Yeah. And for teachers giving online classes for the school who have kids at home too, like they have to teach other classes and then they have to make sure that their kids are doing their things as well, their school and their homework. And
Exactly. And for me, I'm only one-on-one with one of my students. These teachers that are trying to coordinate their whole classrooms, or the dance studios that are trying to keep their kids dancing online with whole classes. I, my hat's off to them.
yes, I think it's good to realize that and to be patient because it's so new for them too. And some of us, I think I've noticed people are fast to criticize, and I really hope that the teachers out there are getting more encouragement than critique because they have to do things a completely different way. It's not just getting online because it's exhausting for children to sit online for a long time. So the teachers have to come up with new ways, new methods, and
Exactly.
that might be a long process for them before they figure out what works. And our kids need to be patient too, and we need to be patient as parents and just like, yeah, they're human and this is totally new and we can't expect them to like know what to do all of a sudden. It's not even realistic, right?
Yeah, that word that you just used, my husband said to me last night too. He was like, I think you need to be a little more patient with the girls while they're doing their homework and whatnot. And I thought, he's right. He's exactly right, because we're all in this together. We're all isolating. We're all in each other's bubbles. So I think it's very important that we as teachers also, with our students, with our families, with our own children, is to exercise patience, because this is all new for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just going to wrap up and thank you for your time today. And also just let you know that I'm super impressed with how you're running things. Like it's so organized and professional, but down to earth and fun. And I feel invigorated by the way you teach and your excitement around it. So I really look forward to our lessons and continuing with you and want to thank you.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was a treat this morning to be able to talk with you.
Great. Thank you. Well, have a great day. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. It's great. It works. And hats off to you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.